Hollywood heavyweight and legend of the silver screen Cary Grant had a turbulent childhood, and his interpersonal relationships continued to haunt him throughout his adulthood. Throughout his life, he experienced 4 failed marriages, but fortunately he found peace in his final years away from the hustle and bustle of Hollywood. He was 62 when he made his last film, and although he received quite a few offers to appear in movies and TV shows after that, he turned them all down. When Grant made his exit from the limelight, he got the chance to relax for the first time, probably in his entire life. He no longer had to stress and fret over trying to live up to the name he had made for himself. He was finally free to be who he always wanted to be, himself. Gone but not forgotten. Grant led a successful career as a smooth, seductive, and handsomely chiseled leading man for more than 30 years. He passed away in 1986 at age 82 from a stroke. Before his passing, the Philadelphia Story star spent the previous 20 years of his life in retirement. He became a father rather late in life. He had his one and only daughter, Jennifer, when he was 62. Even though he had retired from Hollywood, Grant still loved making home movies with his daughter, whom he had with his 4th wife, Diane Cannon. He much preferred such low-key productions over the lavish ones he took part in making for the big screen. He did, however, at one point choose to tour as a one-man show where he would share the details of his career with audiences across the country. Unfortunately, he never got the chance to carry out those plans. He intended to kick off the first leg of that tour with a booking in Davenport, Iowa. But sadly, he never made it to the stage. On November 30th, 1986, Grant suddenly fell ill during rehearsals. He was rushed to the ER at a nearby hospital where he passed away later that evening. His 5th wife, Barbara Harris Grant, was by his side when he died. While the cause of death wasn't initially stated, it was later revealed he had died because of having a stroke. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. And stick around to find out whether or not Cary Grant was secretly gay. Grant left behind a glowing legacy. Cary was born Archibald Alexander Leach in Bristol, England. He amassed millions of adoring fans in his 82 years of life. When he passed away, the world mourned the loss of one of the greatest actors to ever grace Hollywood. Even President Reagan, who himself was a film star, offered a heartfelt tribute to the actor. He referred to him as possessing elegance, wit, and charm, and added that his memory would endure forever on film and in our hearts. Grant had previously expressed some concern about how he would be remembered following his death. His daughter, Jennifer Grant, who followed in her father's footsteps by pursuing a life as an actress, wrote in her 2011 memoir, Good Stuff, a reminiscence of my father, Cary Grant, that he asked her several times to remember him the way she knew him. According to her, Grant was worried that after he died, people would start talking about him in a negative light. And sure, Grant was not the pinnacle of perfection he appeared to be when portraying the suave and handsome characters on the big screen. He struggled quite a bit in his personal life, was known for having intense bouts of depression, and experimented with drugs in his younger years. But he desired, much like anyone else, to keep his life and death private. After his passing, Grant's body was hauled back to LA, where he was cremated. No funeral service was held. He requested his ashes be spread out in the waters off the coast of California. Cary Grant's bizarre LSD years. Grant may have been concerned people would begin to speak negatively about him after his death for very good reason. Back in 1960, the editors of Good Housekeeping magazine got a very strange phone call from a notoriously reclusive actor who hardly gave interviews. It was Cary Grant on the line, and he wanted to talk. The problem was the only thing he wanted to discuss was the enormous amount of LSD he had just ingested. And beyond that, he wanted to preach to the world about the wonders of the then newly discovered drug and how everyone should immediately start dropping it too. Growing up in a poor family in Bristol, Grant's father was constantly cheating on his mother, and at one point she upped and vanished. Grant later discovered his deadbeat dad had her committed to an insane asylum for no reason. Cary spent most of his adult life trying to come to terms with his own internal demons, while trying to put to rest the ones that tormented him from his past. When he was introduced to LSD therapy by his 3rd wife, he felt like he'd finally found the cure for all of his psychological troubles. What happened during those acid sessions apparently was pretty mind-blowing for him. Between the years of 1958 and 61, Grant dropped acid at least 100 times. But instead of turning the inside of his mind into something out of Alice in Wonderland, The psychedelic hallucinogen transformed him into some kind of evangelical advocate for his new favorite chemical. He didn't view it as a drug. He saw it as a tool to help one find enlightenment. In his eyes, acid wasn't a substance that should be taken to escape reality, like cocaine or heroin, but instead it should be used by those looking to engage more intimately with reality. Keep in mind, LSD was legal at the time, and it had yet to be co-opted by the counterculture movement that would catch the world by storm later that decade. Once the hippies started taking the drug, however, Grant took a step back and stopped being such a hype man for the substance. He didn't want to tarnish his image by associating himself with dropouts and burnouts. Rumors swirled he was secretly gay. Some have speculated that Cary Grant was either gay but closeted, bisexual, or just had some kind of experimental phase at some point. A 2016 documentary called Woman He's Undressed tried to make the case that Grant was gay. In the film, it's claimed Grant was in a gay relationship with costume designer Ori Kelly in the 1920s. A decade later, Cary Grant and fellow Hollywood heartthrob Randolph Scott hit it off and went on to spend nearly 12 years on and off living with each other, sharing a majestic Santa Monica beach house and an LA mansion together. But this was the 30s, and Hollywood was not the gay-friendly town it is today. If Grant and Scott were indeed in a relationship, they certainly wouldn't have been allowed to openly live for all the world to see. Their careers would have been destroyed. Grant went on to marry 5 different women, while Scott married twice, adopting 2 children with his second wife. The 2 actors remained close friends for the rest of their lives. Those who knew the 2 back in those days, however, tend to think they were a happily committed romantic couple. Grant's daughter Jennifer, on the other hand, dismissed the notion outright. So who knows? Grant retired to pursue a sense of normalcy. When Grant retired from acting in 1966 at age 62, it was directly after his daughter Jennifer was born. He wanted her to be raised with her father taking an active role in her affairs, and wanted to give her a stable life. He had previously become disillusioned with cinema in the 1960s, and rarely ever found a script he felt compelled to take on. He once stated he could have gone on to play a grandfather or a bum, but instead he wanted to commit the remainder of his life focusing on the more important things. He knew for sure the golden age of Hollywood was over after he made the film Charade in 1963. Still, he went on to star in 2 more films, Father Goose and Walk Don't Run, before taking his graceful yet decisive exit from the public eye. When asked about making a career comeback, he would routinely reply to reporters with, quote, "fat chance." He did, however, appear in the audience of the video documentary for Elvis's 1970 Las Vegas concert, Elvis, That's the Way It Is. Now it's time to hear from you. Which Hollywood leading man from that time were you most fond of? Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.